Okay, let's dive right into this. Welcome to today's Explainer, where we're going to unpack one of the absolute most fascinating engineering projects in human history. We are looking at the deepest hole humans have ever dug. It's a project that pushed science literally to its absolute limits before it was just abruptly abandoned.
So, what actually lies 12 kilometers straight down beneath us? I mean, it sounds like the setup to a sci fi movie, right? But imagine spending more than 20 years, 2 whole decades, just relentlessly drilling down into the Earth's crust. You invest massive amounts of time, money, and some of the greatest scientific brainpower available into this one singular goal, only to discover something so incredibly strange and unexpected that the entire project is suddenly brought to a grinding halt. So you have to wonder, was it simply extreme environmental conditions? Or, did they uncover something down there that defied all contemporary understanding? Well, that is the exact mystery we're going to unravel today. To really grasp the mind-boggling scale we're dealing with here, think about this quote. If Mount Everest were flipped upside down and dropped into this borehole, the mountain still wouldn't reach the bottom. That is the kind of depth we're talking about today. It's an almost incomprehensible vertical drop right through the continental crust. Section 1. The Cold War Earth Race. To understand how this incredible project even got off the ground, we actually have to rewind a bit to the middle of the Cold War. And this brilliantly illustrates the dynamic of that era. We had this massive ideological and technological competition going on globally. While the United States was famously focused on the space race and getting to the moon, the Soviet Union wanted to explore inner Earth. Their grand goal was to drill deeper than any human had ever gone before. They specifically wanted to study the Mohorovicic discontinuity, which is basically the boundary between the Earth's crust and the mantle, and study it directly to uncover the geophysical secrets hidden right beneath our feet. So it was a race downwards. They were aiming to conquer the deep Earth, just as the Americans were aiming to conquer deep space. So in 1970, work officially kicks off. And they definitely didn't pick an easy spot. They chose a super remote site in northern Russia known as the Kola Peninsula. It was freezing cold, incredibly isolated, and, well, perfectly suited for a massive, secret scientific experiment. Now, the drilling process itself was agonizingly slow. Every few meters required meticulous planning. Standard oil drilling tech? Yeah, that absolutely wouldn't work here. They actually had to invent entirely new mechanisms. For instance, they built drilling rigs where only the bit at the very bottom rotated, rather than the entire drill string, just to survive the crushing pressure as they went further down. And despite the brutal tundra conditions and the sheer mechanical difficulty, they just kept going. By the late 1970s, the borehole officially passed every previous drilling record to become the deepest artificial point on Earth. But they didn't stop there. They kept grinding through solid rock until they hit a final staggering record of 12,262 meters. Section 2. Shattering our scientific assumptions. Reaching that depth was incredible on its own, but it's what they actually found down there that truly changed geological history. Because the deeper they drilled, the less the Earth behaved the way any of the existing models predicted. Now, what's really interesting about this slide is how perfectly these findings group into three massive anomalies that just completely shocked the scientific community. First up, the rock layers. For decades, scientists firmly believed that there would be this predictable transition from granite to basalt at a certain depth. But instead, the researchers found that the granite simply continued. It was deeply fractured and completely saturated. The Earth was way more complicated than anyone had imagined. Second, they found water. Now, to be clear, we aren't talking about underground rivers or massive subterranean lakes here. This was microscopic water trapped inside ancient, highly pressurized rocks, kilometers below the surface where, honestly, it fundamentally shouldn't have existed. And then there was a third anomaly, and this one was perhaps the most stunning of the whole bunch. Tiny, fossilized microorganisms. They found ancient microscopic life buried deep inside rocks that were estimated to be over 2 billion years old. This finding absolutely floored researchers. I mean, at depths of around 7 kilometers, the sheer crushing pressure and the complete lack of oxygen and light were thought to make the environment entirely sterile. No way anything survives there, right? But this meant that life had existed in places that were once thought to be completely hostile and totally devoid of the conditions needed for survival. The Earth beneath our feet was holding on to biological secrets nobody saw coming, completely upending our entire understanding of biological durability. But as incredible as that ancient life and hidden water were, they actually weren't the reason the project ultimately ground to a halt. Section 3. The Extreme Heat Barrier. 180 degrees Celsius. Scientists expected heat, obviously. That's just basic geology. But their models predicted entirely manageable conditions. right around 100 degrees at that specific depth. Well, reality was entirely different. The deeper they went, the more the geothermal gradient just spiked, way beyond their calculations. At these extreme depths, the ambient temperatures skyrocketed to 180 degrees Celsius. That's about 356 degrees Fahrenheit. That is unbelievably hot. It was hot enough to severely damage their specialized equipment and hot enough to act as a literal brick wall for the entire mission.
And this extreme heat triggered a massive cascading series of failures. It's like a domino effect. First, at 180 degrees, the metal components of the drill and the customized sensors actually began to weaken. They lost their structural integrity. Because the metal was failing, drilling slowed down to a total crawl. Plus, the rock itself became almost plastic-like at that temperature and pressure, effectively closing up the hole almost as fast as they could drill it. Consequently, repairs became much more frequent because things just kept breaking or getting stuck. And finally, as you can imagine, the costs completely escalated out of control. The team originally had this big dream of reaching 15 kilometers, and they desperately refused to quit because they'd already come so far. But the Earth had other plans. The equipment simply could not handle the hostile, scorching environment they had dug into.
Section 4. The deepest unsolved mystery.
12,262 meters. After years of relentless effort, this is where the project finally maxed out. More than 12 kilometers straight down into the Earth. Think about that for a second. To this very day, no human-made hole has ever gone deeper. It remains one of humanity's greatest engineering achievements. They achieved what many experts confidently believed was completely impossible, creating a window into the deep crust that continues to provide geologists with invaluable data even today. But strangely, the deeper they drilled, the more questions appeared. And this is really what you should take away from this explainer today. Scientists had broken records, they uncovered hidden water, and they found ancient life. Yet, shortly after reaching that maximum depth, the project was officially shuttered, and a bizarre story began spreading all around the world. Rumors started circulating about mysterious, terrifying sounds echoing from deep underground, allegedly recorded by lowered microphones. Now, while we know the extreme heat and the loss of funding truly stopped the drill, these wild rumors transformed the Kola Superdeep Borehole from a purely scientific feat of engineering into a modern myth. It kind of makes you look at the ground beneath your feet a little differently, doesn't it? So, what do you think? Did they just run out of money and hit a thermal wall, or did they uncover something down there that they were never meant to find? I'll leave you to ponder that one, pointing our attention straight down, deep into the Earth's crust. Echoes from the abyss, the Kola Superdeep Hole. Now, I know what you're thinking. That sounds exactly like the title of a sci-fi thriller, doesn't it? A hole stretching down so incredibly far into the Earth that it just completely captures the imagination. But you know, this wasn't a movie. This was a massive, real-world scientific endeavor. We're talking about a project that produced totally unexpected discoveries, completely shattered long-held geological assumptions, and, well, somehow birthed a terrifying legend that absolutely refuses to die, even today. Which brings us directly to a pretty wild question. Did scientists really drill a well into hell? Back in the 1980s and 90s, this shockingly bizarre story just exploded across newspapers and radio programs worldwide. It became an urban legend of epic proportions, and it centered entirely around this very real scientific drill site. The rumor was that researchers, who, remember, were digging deeper than anyone in human history had ever gone before, decided to drop special microphones into this massive underground hole. And in doing so, they supposedly captured something absolutely terrifying. The legend claimed that specialized, highly sensitive microphones were lowered deep into the dark abyss of the borehole. Just picture the scene this rumor painted for a second. You have scientists hovering anxiously around this massive drill site, lowering miles and miles of cables down into the pitch-black, incredibly hot earth, strictly to record the ambient sounds of the deep underground. And what did they supposedly record when those microphones finally hit the bottom? Human-like screams. Yeah, according to the wild stories spreading across the globe, what echoed back up those cables were the terrifying, agonizing cries of thousands of voices screaming in pain. I mean, it sparked absolute mass hysteria in some circles. It led people to genuinely believe that the scientists had drilled way too far and had quite literally reached the underworld. Others started speculating that something ancient and deeply supernatural lived beneath the Earth's crust, just waiting to be uncovered. It's such a fascinating contrast between the myth and the reality, isn't it? While the urban legends spun these crazy tales of agonizing voices, reaching hell itself, and uncovering supernatural beings, the documented reality is incredibly firm. There is absolutely no credible scientific evidence that such recordings were ever made. Actually, scratch that. It's not just a lack of evidence. The researchers involved in the project repeatedly and flat out denied the story. It is, at its core, purely an urban legend. Yet, the legend survives today because, well, mysteries always capture our imagination. And honestly, few things are more mysterious than a hole stretching unimaginably deep underground. But here's the thing. Even though the screams were completely fake, the actual truth of the borehole is dramatic enough on its own.
Part 1, the real reason it ended. So, since the researchers completely shut down those supernatural rumors, we really need to look at why this incredibly ambitious project actually ground to a halt. By the early 1990s, the mission faced a cascading failure of immense, real-world problems. First off, the subterranean temperatures were far higher than scientists expected, which directly triggered the second major issue, increasing equipment failures. The deeper they went, the more ridiculously hostile the environment became. It was almost impossible to keep the machinery working under that intense heat and pressure. At the same time, funding became incredibly hard to secure. And, on the geopolitical level, the Soviet Union itself was collapsing, which changed scientific priorities practically overnight. So eventually, the work slowed down. And then it just stopped completely.
15 kilometers. That was the ultimate dream. The original scientific goal of the Kola Superdeep Borehole was to reach an astonishing 15 kilometers deep into the Earth. The project didn't end because the scientists just lost interest or got bored. It ended because Mother Nature proved to be far more hostile and challenging than anyone anticipated. The extreme conditions simply forced them to stop short of that 15-kilometer goal. Honestly, the deeper they drilled, the more impossible the mission mathematically and physically became with the tech they had.
Part 2. A legacy in the rocks.
Today, those massive drilling towers, they're completely gone. The site is largely abandoned, many of the surrounding buildings have fallen into deep decay, and the famous hole is now sealed with just a simple metal cap bolted to the ground. But beneath it sits the reality of their achievement, 12,262 meters. That was the final depth they actually achieved before the project was shut down. It sits quietly beneath that metal cap today, representing literally the deepest point humans have ever managed to reach underground. It remains completely silent, hidden from the world, but man, it is still holding so many incredible secrets.
And this right here perfectly illustrates why it remains one of humanity's greatest scientific experiments. During the lifespan of the project, they collected thousands of physical rock samples, and those samples are absolutely crucial. They continue to help scientists understand Earth's history to this day. Even now, decades later, researchers are still actively studying the data pulled from that 12,262-meter hole. It completely changed our understanding of the planet, revealing profound surprises, and just totally destroying old geological assumptions about the deep crust. It was a real game changer.
Part 3. The final frontier below. With the site largely silent and abandoned today, a lot of people look at the Kola Superdeep Borehole and wonder, could modern technology allow us to surpass it? Could we continue that journey downward and finally hit that 15-kilometer mark today? Well, the short answer is yes, but it would be incredibly difficult. Overcoming that massive, ongoing obstacle of extreme subterranean heat would require a completely new era of technology. First, we'd need entirely new materials that can actually withstand those unimaginable temperatures without melting or warping. Second, we'd need advanced drilling systems that are light years beyond what the Soviets possessed in the 1980s. And third, we would highly likely need to integrate artificial intelligence to manage the complex, highly volatile conditions down there where human reflexes and traditional machines just fail. But if we combined all of that, it could eventually help humanity reach even greater depths. There is a profound cosmic irony to all of this, isn't there? Despite our incredible technological leaps over the last century, humans have actually explored less of the Earth's interior than we have of the moon. Just think about that for a second. We've sent rovers to Mars, we've sent probes way beyond our solar system, yet the biggest mystery isn't necessarily what the scientists found down in Kola, it's what still remains completely undiscovered right below our own feet. We know more about outer space than the world beneath our feet. The Kola Superdeep Borehole was so much more than just a scientific project. It was humanity's grand attempt to uncover the hidden foundational layers of our planet. And it proved that countless fascinating secrets remain waiting to be uncovered. We spend so much time looking up at the stars, but there is an entire unexplored universe of rock, heat, and history directly beneath us that continues to fascinate millions of people around the world. So, as we wrap up this explainer, I want you to ponder the vast hidden layers of our planet.
Would you dare descend into the deepest hole ever dug? Somewhere beneath the earth, countless secrets still remain, just waiting for someone brave enough to search for them. If you enjoyed this journey into one of Earth's greatest mysteries, make sure to follow along and join us for more explainers diving into unexplained discoveries, lost worlds, and the darkest secrets of our planet. Tell us what you think. Would you take that journey into the abyss? Until next time, stay curious and keep exploring.